Cowboys made a trade on Tuesday. Could they be making another one before week 8? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, what's going on, sir?
Not much, just still recovering from the fact that the Cowboys made a big trade after us asking to, and maybe they've just started all finally listening to Cowboys podcast and pontificators. But I'm excited to answer some questions about, I'm sure, the trade and about maybe some potential future trades.
Yeah, let's just dive right into it. We got before I even looked, like 48 questions, and about 10 of them are all the same. So everybody wants to know. Can the Cowboys or will the Cowboys make a move for a wide receiver? We'll go with Travis's question. Beyond the obvious names, what wide receiver would you like to see the Cowboys trade for in the upcoming days?
Normally, I would imagine on other teams, when they make a trade, the questions on their Locked On shows the next day is, well, tell us more about this player. But no, instead what it's done is whetted the Cowboys fans' appetite for more trades, and now specifically for a wide receiver. So I guess the question is, do we think the Cowboys are going to trade for a wide receiver, and who would it be? I mean,
let's start with that first one. Do you think the Cowboys are interested in making a move for a wide receiver?
I do, simply because the tea leaf reading that we've seen, right? It just feels like there's people whispering on the wind about this. Much like kind of the situation with Gallimore, where there's a lot of things that the actions of the team don't quite match up with like some of the talk behind the team. So I tend to think that they may be, simply because of what we're hearing, sort of. But I don't really have any concept for who it would be. I mean, I think there's names that have been thrown around. You see Brian Broaddus and some other folks kind of throwing around the name Brandon Cooks, but I honestly think that has everything to do with the fact that when it's wide receiver trade time, Brandon Cooks is like the guy. Like, he's been traded so many times. So it's interesting to see kind of the names that are being bandied about, and I wonder how much they line up with the teams that are actually willing to trade that player. So
I agree. I think the Cowboys are looking at adding a receiver to the team. Let's be clear, not like a number one. I don't think they're going out there to try to trade for DJ Moore or even Brandon Cooks, right? Like, I think they're looking for more somebody that can fill a role. And let's do a little checklist, right? The things that the Cowboys would want at receiver if they're making a trade.
Okay.
I think somebody that can play like the third and fourth receiver spot, somebody who can play multiple positions, right? Somebody that can fill in,
definitely,
in the slot and on the outside. If you're trading for like a wide receiver 4, because I think the Cowboys do feel good about CD, Gallup, and Noah Brown. That guy has to be able to play special teams. And we know with Simi Fehoko on IR, I mean, you're missing that. Jalen Tolbert doesn't play special teams. So you need that. Plus, you need somebody who is relatively cheap. How many receivers out there, Landon, fit that mold of, hey, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 with flexibility and special teams ability? Can you think of any?
Not a ton that are available, right? Because despite the fact,
they've got to be available.
Yeah, that's the thing that is key, is that not only they have to be available, but it's also like those are kind of players that are easy for teams to retain because they're not expensive and they're not necessarily looking to get rid of them. So I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that kind of fits all that bill, except for, did Denzel Mims play any special teams with the Jets?
No.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Jets have a couple different guys that sounds like they're shopping, and especially now that their season seems to be falling apart. That would be a team that we consider, but I can't really think of anyone like that really, kind of threads that needle perfectly. I know you do. Let's hear it.
This player has a reasonable contract. He's not on a rookie deal, but does fit all of those things, and has only played 40 snaps over the last 5 weeks. So pretty clearly getting phased out of the offense. What about Cedric Wilson in a trade?
Oh, wow.
So I asked PFF Brad about his contract for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
The Cowboys could trade for him, and it basically would be a 2-year deal at $9 million. So, I mean, not terrible, right? It would give you somebody who can play in the slot, who can play on special teams, can play on the outside. Plus, I don't think we should forget this point. The Cowboys haven't run like any trick plays.
No, they haven't.
Because they just don't have anybody to do that.
Yeah.
We know that Cedric Wilson knows this offense. He's not playing at all in Miami. Why not send a day 3 pick for somebody that you know well?
I mean, you make a very compelling argument. I think that it's so funny. It's so funny because I was just sitting there thinking, like, while you were listing all that off, I was like, man, the Cowboys tried to keep a guy like this, and it became very expensive very quickly. The other thing to consider, though, is that they kept Cedric Wilson, Cedric Wilson walked out of the door when they were still having a lot of that money earmarked for Randy Gregory.
Sure.
So I think it becomes a lot more of an affordable case now that you still still have some money left over from what you would have spent from Randy Gregory, even after spending it on some of it on Dorrance Armstrong. Yeah, I mean, honestly, so you said $9 million for 2 years?
So here's the way that you could do it. If the Cowboys wanted to basically have it just be a 1-year rental, it would be $2.2 million if you did it now, like $2 million if you did it after the bye, right? Or after this week. So basically $2 million for the rest of the year. If you wanted to keep him this year and next year, $9 million total for the rest of this season and next year. Not bad. In today's wide receiver market, not all that bad.
No. I mean, there's lots of reasons to really like that, including the fact that obviously he would know the system. He'd come in very well versed on how to run everything. It wouldn't take him almost any time to kind of get up to speed. You know he can perform. You know that he can produce. When it's funny because when you started listening it right before you listed the name that actually came to my head, even though I think he's a free agent now, is Malik Turner. Because he's another guy I think he's on the street now. But obviously Cedric Wilson is a better version of Malik Turner. And frankly, I understand the Dolphins have an incredible wide receiver core, but I am shocked that Cedric Wilson hasn't gotten more opportunities there.
They've got a guy named Rivercraft playing more snaps than Cedric Wilson. And the thing with Miami is they don't play a lot of 3 receiver sets anyways. I think they're the lowest team in the league, and Cedric Wilson's not even the 3rd receiver on that team. So this would be a way for Miami to save some cap space, kind of get out of a bad deal for them, and for the Cowboys to upgrade the receiving core.
It does. I mean, I'm assuming that if they're playing a guy named Rivercraft, that Miami must have some sort of like sponsorship with Cabela or something like that, or like that's ridiculous, man.
We should mention they drafted a receiver in the 4th round this year. Your Easy E from Texas Tech.
That's right.
Who they're trying to get on the field. So I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if you want a receiver that does kind of fill some of the holes that you have, especially like, hey, if you don't have a backup punt returner on this team now because Jourdan Lewis is now out for the season. This just gives you another guy that can help you on game days.
I like it. I mean, honestly, I do. And at the very least, it really bolsters your special teams. And I think what you do at that point, if you can do that, is you basically shut Tolbert down for the year. You know, let him have a year to kind of fully develop. Clearly, what they've been trying to do is get him involved in special teams. I heard Fossil talk about that they were trying to work him in a little bit more. It just may not be his thing, and especially if he hasn't played a ton of football total in his career. If he didn't play it a ton in high school, you missed a lot of the kind of fundamentals that all of us learned in high school football, like tackling and some of that stuff. So maybe he doesn't have the skill set quite up to where it needs to be for that. So I like it. I certainly think that it's a name that I wasn't considering, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. And obviously the element about it that I like the most is that, he could come in and hit the ground running, obviously, and know exactly what to do.
And one more thing, when I asked PFF Brad about like what would be the cost to go get him, he said, why don't you just give Miami the compensatory pick that you're going to get for Cedric Wilson, which is like a 6th round pick, right? Basically just swap it back. And I was like, you know what? It's great. If it cost me a 6th-round pick to improve my wide receiver core, I'm doing that in a heartbeat. Let's get to some more questions, Landon. But before we do that, we want to tell you about LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is add your job in the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We also want to tell you about Bird Dogs. You and I, Landon, are huge Bird Dog fans.
Love my Bird Dogs.
Yeah, they
Love
sent
them.
us a pair of sweatpants in the mail a few weeks ago. Absolutely love them. Bird Dog pants are perfect for fall golf. You might not play like Tiger, but on the golf course, you'll feel just as good. Go to birddogs.com and enter promo code LOCKEDON, and they'll throw in a free Bird Dogs rope hat. That's birddogs.com, promo code LOCKEDON, and boom, a free Bird Dogs rope hat with your pair of Bird Dogs, the most comfortable shorts, pants, and sweatpants with built-in liners. You will not want to take these things off. I promise you. Landon and I are huge fans of the sweatpants. Just been wearing them around the house. We're going to call these our podcasting sweatpants.
I mean, honestly, it's embarrassing. I have to say, like 2 or 3 times, I'm not going to lie, I pulled them out of the dirty clothes because I wanted to keep wearing them. Yeah.
Which means Bird Dog, send us some more sweatpants.
That's right. We need more sweatpants because I'm not sure if I love them enough yet.
Yes, go check them out. Locked On, and boom. Again, free Bird Dogs rope hat with your pair of Bird Dogs. All right, Landon, let's get to some more questions. A lot of people want to know about the receiving corps in general, not making a trade, but
yeah.
This one from Michael. How disappointed are you in the receiving corps? It seems like week in and week out, they've had bad drops that make the quarterback's job harder.
I think I'm disappointed in the fact that we haven't gotten to see any of Jalen Tolbert. I figured that he would have developed a little bit further. I still tend to think that that's a lot has to do with the fact that it's a problem with the numbers game because he doesn't play special teams. Like we said, it's hard to get him on the field, and he isn't quite developed enough as a wide receiver to justify his roster spot over guys that can do, more for the team. Outside of that, I actually think that that Brown has done a great job. Noah Brown's done a great job kind of stepping into that role. Gallup has kind of, had to work his way back into health. He doesn't look like he's kind of fully there yet, and that's going to be, an ongoing process. And I actually think that CeeDee Lamb has played a lot better football, these last few weeks. He's kind of struggled early, but I thought that he's kind of evened it out a little bit. I think as we stand right now, you're kind of in a middle spot where you're waiting for Gallup to kind of continue to get healthier. And I think that Noah Brown is doing what he can at the position. So that's why we're kind of having this conversation about bringing in more guys. Like, because if you suffered an injury right now, you kind of would be in a bad spot. But I tend to think that the wide receivers haven't been as terrible as it's been made out to be. I just think that hasn't been a ton of opportunity. And frankly, when Cooper Rush was here, he was just more comfortable kind of throwing the ball inside to tight ends and running backs, or at least wide receivers that were kind of running out of the slot. So I think that there has been some disappointment, but I don't know that it's like bitterly disappointed about the wide receivers, because I think that they, for the most part, haven't been terrible. It's just there's been certain spots that have been less than what you wanted it to be, and other spots where they've just been okay.
Yeah. I think there is some disappointment with how Jalen Tolbert's start of his career has gone, right? Like,
sure,
absolutely. You want him to be so good that you can't keep him off the field, right? But that obviously hasn't been the case. But at the same time, I think this franchise and the organization is slow playing a lot of these mid-round picks. Like, they just want them to feel super comfortable before they hit the field. Like, we know Jabril Cox can play. Cowboys aren't putting him into a position yet where they have to. Nashawn Wright and Kelvin Joseph. These are a second and third round picks. The Cowboys have played veterans over them as they kind of bide their time, right? I think the Cowboys, because the roster is better than what it's been in previous years, they're just not forced to play young players and rookies. So let me put it this way. I think like in 2020, Jalen Tolbert probably would have been starting in week 1, and he probably would have played all year long. But because the roster's in better shape, you can't afford to have him be sometimes a healthy scratch and just let him get up to speed. So I can see it both ways here.
Yeah, I don't think it's clear cut that the wide receivers have been a disappointment. In fact, I think part of, like you mentioned, part of the reason that Tolbert's not playing is because Noah Brown has played so well that he's made his spot kind of expendable at this point, right? Like it's hard. It's hard.
Really quick. In like 2019, 2020 Cowboys. And actually we saw this like with DeMarcus Lawrence, like when Lawrence was drafted, was that 2014? That was a second round pick that was given the starting job in week 1 before he broke his foot. The Cowboys have a second round defensive end in Sam Williams right now, who is playing well above expectation. Like he's playing awesome right now. And they're only giving him like 12 snaps a game, right? They're trying to slow play these guys so they don't overwork them, because I think Mike McCarthy knows in a 17 game schedule, and hopefully for the Cowboys, a 21 game schedule.
There you go.
You don't want these guys to hit a rookie wall in December. You want them playing their best football in December. And I think that's why they're limiting the snaps for a lot of these players.
Well, I also think there's, the idea is that there's going to be a handoff, right? At some point, is that as the season goes on, as these young guys start to work in a little bit more, you'll decrease the veteran snaps. You'll increase some of the rookie snaps as they earn more and more snaps. And then hopefully by the end of the year, when you really need everyone playing at their best, you've got rookies with experience that are not hitting a rookie wall because they've just kind of gotten into the swing of playing in the season. You've got veterans who aren't worn out yet because they've been alleviated by these rookies that are coming on. There's just a very I will say this. I mean, and we talked about this last year. One thing that Mike McCarthy has done a really great job of is player management, as far as knowing when and how to substitute players, knowing when to get them off the field and not over repping these guys. You could say what you want about what happened at the end of the year last year, but McCarthy had this team set up in a great position health wise when it went into the playoffs.
Healthiest I've ever seen them in the playoffs.
They just play bad. And I think that is a testament to the way that the team has managed players since McCarthy has been here. And I also think that it's a testament to, playing the youth and having, depth in order to be able to facilitate such a thing, because to be able to continue to win games at a rate that gets you into the playoffs while also, resting your veteran players and making sure that you're developing your younger players, that's an incredible, difficult needle to thread. And the Cowboys managed to do a good job of it last year. And I feel like they're doing a pretty good job of it this year.
All right. One of their depth pieces that is going to have to play this week is Daron Bland, their 5th round pick out of Fresno State. Javier wants to know, is it possible at all that Daron Bland ends up being a upgrade from Jourdan Lewis?
Certainly. I mean, look, possible is a wide range of things in the NFL. Is it likely? I don't think it's unlikely. From what we've seen of Daron Bland so far, he's played very well. He's taken advantage of all these situations. He hasn't necessarily been burned heavily. I think one thing that Jourdan Lewis does that is kind of missed often is he's decent in coverage. He was especially having a really good game this last game when he got hurt.
Best game of the season. Yep.
But he's a solid tackler. He's solid in the box. He's a force as a tackler and a run defender in the box. So I'm interested to see how Bland kind of can pick up that aspect of it. But from the coverage standpoint, look, Bland was one of the best man cover cornerbacks coming into the draft last year. I mean, the numbers kind of bear that out to a large degree. He kind of got knocked a little bit coming from Fresno State, not necessarily a traditional spot. But look, he came into training camp and showed you right away that he belonged. And then when you put him into the regular season snaps, he showed you that he belonged there too. So as far as my whole thought process with these young guys, especially these kind of guys that came out of nowhere that are 5th round picks that are suddenly just showing up and playing really good football, their rookie year. This happens across the league. You let them play until they show you that they can't. You get him in there, and obviously Bland's going in because Jourdan Lewis is hurt, but you give him the full load and you see what he can handle, and you hope that he surprises you. And oftentimes these guys do. So I think there's plenty of optimism to think that it could be a positive Wally Pipp situation for the Cowboys. And I mean, hopefully,
Right.
hopefully Lewis is not pipped completely, off the team. I like him a lot, but that is a possibility. But I think that he's shown us that he belongs. Show us the ceiling. You show us where your limit is, because I haven't seen it quite yet.
So, all right, let's talk about Jourdan Lewis just really quickly. I thought his game against the Lions was by far the best of the season. Like, he played incredible.
He did.
I kind of think he was struggling a little bit before that, though. Like, I thought of the starters, like, you could make a case that he was of the bottom 3 or 4. He struggled a little bit. And I don't know if Bland's going to come in and be great, but what we've seen from Bland at the end of his career, final 3 games at Fresno State, he allowed a total of 35 yards in coverage on 27 targets. Fantastic. He played really well in the preseason. He ended up beating out Calvin Joseph for kind of that number 4 cornerback job. And he's already played this year, and he has an interception. So I don't want the expectations to get too out of control, but everything we've seen from him so far has been positive. So let's wait and see. If it doesn't work out, the good thing is the Cowboys have options, right? They can move Anthony Brown into the slot and slide Calvin Joseph from the outside. They've got Nahshon Wright, who we know fits the scheme, and they can help out Nahshon Wright on the outside if they need to. I'm kind of excited to see Bland, though.
I am too. Honestly, I think that, it's one of those situations where you hate to see the vet go, but you're excited to see what the rookie has. And they have kind of different skill sets. I think that Bland may be a better cover guy, at least just, physical ability to kind of keep up with guys than Jourdan Lewis was.
And more athletic.
So it'll be interesting to see, kind of the changes and the pros and cons of Bland versus Jourdan Lewis.
All right, let's get to some more questions. But before we do that, we want to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is so much fun. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Pick projection, you win. And you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on just about any sport that you watch. That includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. They are currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, they'll give you $50. It's that easy. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, let's get through a couple more of these questions. This one from Jeff. He wants to know, what are your expectations for Damone Clark this season? The Cowboys did activate him on Wednesday, so that means he's going to be practicing, potentially play this weekend. What are your thoughts here?
I think at this point we're looking at strictly special teams. I mean, if he plays on the defense, it likely is due to an injury or maybe multiple injuries, because we still haven't even seen Cox make the field yet. So really, as a defender, I am interested to see if maybe. I will be interested to see if Damone Clark gets on the field before Cox does, and what that actually means. I'd
be a little surprised, to be honest.
I definitely would, but I think that if that happens, then we may need to be taking a look at what exactly is happening with Cox. So, but I do think that for the most part, Damone Clark is going to be playing a ton of special teams. That's where he'll be making most of his snaps. So that's where I would look out for him.
Next one from Clayton: is the jumbo package now off the play sheet with Matt Farniak out for the next couple months, or do you think they'll use a defensive lineman back there, or just go with more 13 personnel?
Well, they still have Jason Peters too, so they can use that. I don't know if
that's what's bigger than jumbo.
I mean, seriously, I think that likely what they'll do is, I think that what they found is that they really like 13 because they love these tight ends so much, and I think that's part of the reason that they really started using that kind of jumbo package near the goal line at 13 personnel. Well, it's like 23 personnel actually with Pollard. So. I still think you'll see some of that, as they can. We definitely saw a couple snaps where Peters was playing offensive tackle, and then they also had another 2 tight ends lined up on the other side, and then Noah Brown as a wing. So they definitely are still going to do packages where they're creating gaps. But I have a feeling that you may not see as much of the McGovern fullback play that we had seen previously.
You'll see different versions of it, but yeah, probably not a fullback, like a power fullback like McGovern or whatever. So
more of a tight end situation.
Probably more, and that's they also like the tight ends quite a bit. More Hendershot, more Ferguson. I'm sure you'll see those guys. All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reaction, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. All the same places that you get the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'll be back on Friday to preview the Cowboys-Bears game tomorrow. A crossover podcast with Lauren Cox, talking about the biggest storylines for both the Cowboys and the Bears. Make sure you tune in for that. Follow the show on YouTube. Check out Landon on Twitter @McCoolBCB. I am @Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you guys next time.